Today's video is going to be about 10 gamer terminologies. I looked up 10 terminologies that gamers use and I decided to make a video on it, and we are going to talk about it. So, if you want to learn how to speak some geek, stay tuned. But first, let's roll that sweet intro. Welcome back, everybody. I'm glad to see you all here. I'm glad that you could join us. As I said at the top of the video, we're going to be talking about 10 game terminologies. Now, these terminologies are ones that aren't random. I have done videos in the past where I've just picked random terms and I've talked about them. This video is none of those things. I picked these terms selectively, or cherry-picked, I should say. I tried to pick ones that were not common sense type terms, and so hopefully I found 10 ones that don't seem too common sense, although there might be a couple of them, especially if you are a gamer watching this video. Then there will probably be some terms that you know. Why don't we get started with terminology number one. So number one for today's video is going to be orthogonal, or orthogonal movement. Now, orthogonal is very, very simple to explain. It basically means a movement that is up, down, left, or right. No diagonals. So if someone says, hey, is there orthogonal movement? You would say yes or no, like if you can move in diagonally, or if you just have to move up, down, left, or right. That is called orthogonal movement. So if someone mentions that, that's what that means. Number two on the list is a filler game. What a filler game is typically it's a game that plays quickly. And I'd say about 20 minutes or less for what would be called a filler game. Now that's my own delineation and criteria for a filler game. Some people might say a filler game is less than 20 minutes. But for me, I'd say it's about a game that lasts under 20 minutes. That would be a filler game. And what filler games are there games that you play in between other bigger games, or what I've seen filler games in my own gaming career, if that's what you want to call it, is usually a game at the end of the night. So everyone gets together, you have some camaraderie, you order some pizza, whatever, it's game night, you play the first game, it takes a couple hours, maybe play another game, it takes another hour, and it's like, do we want to play one more? Well, it's getting late, no one wants to commit to another hour-long game or 2-hour-long game, so you would pull out a filler game to kind of end the night. You would pull out something that say, hey, this game I know is going to last less than 20 minutes. So that's how I've seen filler games used in my personal life, but I do know that people fit filler games in between other two like big games. Then they'll take downtime to be able to just kind of play a filler game before jumping into a longer game. I've never really done that. I have done the filler game at the end of the night when everyone's just their brains fried. So I do have a couple of games that I want to show off that would be filler games. Now, there's a million filler games out there. These are just a couple of examples that I happen to just browse through my shelves and grab something. And so here we are with Fox in the Forest, which is a competitive trick-taking game, and Fox in the Forest Duet, which is a cooperative trick-taking game. Both of these games are card games, and they play very quickly. Again, they meet the criteria of being able to be played in less than 20 minutes. So these are two filler games, although, as I've already said, there are a ton of filler games out there. Number 3 is roll and write, flip and fill, or flip and build. Holy cow, I know what you're thinking. What in the world is all of that? So roll and write games, flip and fill games, or flip and build games are games where the whole table is going to be given a something in which they're going to have to fill in on their board. A very popular roll and write game is Categories. A lot of people have played Categories, a lot of people know about Categories. But in Categories, you have a giant die that you're going to roll. You come up with a letter, and so you roll like N, and then you have a timer, and then everyone has to come up with a bunch of N words, like NASCAR. And then when everyone's done, or the timer's done, if anyone matches, you cross them off, and then whoever has the most unique words, then they win some points or something like that. I'm not a Categories player, but that's what a roll and write is. There's also a flip and fill. I don't have the box. I didn't bring the box. I just have the one sheet that came with it. But it's called Welcome to Your Perfect Home. And Welcome to Your Perfect Home does not use dice. It has a deck of cards that you kind of shuffle up, and you'll flip them over, and you have to take one card that will be a number or numeric value, and then you have to take another card that'll be an action. And so you'll do an action and a number, and you're trying to fill numbers in on your, I guess, your neighborhood. This is the Winter Wonderland one, but you have like a neighborhood in which you're trying to fill numbers in, and the numbers have to go from smallest to largest. So there are ways in which you can early on in the game really set yourself up for failure. However, this I play solo. I did a video on this game about the solo play and about the multiplayer game. This is one that I highly recommend. Some other flip and fills or flip and builds worth mentioning is a game called Cartographers. Cartographers is again a flip and build game. You're going to be kind of shading in. It's like kind of like Tetris. You're going to be shading in spots on like a board, trying to make things match, trying to get yellows next to a certain thing, or group yellows together to score bonus points and things like that. So that's Cartographers. Another one that's worth noting, which is a flip and build, is a legacy game. So I need to put that out there. It's a legacy campaign narrative game, and it's called My City. I highly recommend My City. Not for the narrative. That really let me down. If you want to go see my video on that, I really thought the narrative on that was just baloney. But the gameplay is solid. Solid gameplay. As you move forward, they introduce more ways, more tiles. This is where you have actual tiles. See, Cartographers, you had to fill in with actual colors, you know, pencils and markers and things like that. My City comes with basically Tetris pieces, and you'll flip a card and it'll be like, ooh, that piece, I have to fit that piece somewhere. So a lot of these games are like Tetris. They feel like a Tetris sort of game. And so that is number 3, roll and write, flip and fill, or flip and build. Number 4 is a sandbox game. Now, most of you should know sandbox games because it comes from the video game world, as far as I know. There are video games out there such as Red Dead Redemption and Fallout that are sandbox games, meaning that you are kind of in the sandbox and you can just explore the world. There's no specific like linear way to play the game. You can kind of go here and do this, or you can go here and grab some of this stuff, or you can go here. There's no direct line or through line for the narrative in order to play the game. You kind of just play around in a sandbox. A sandbox game, one example of a few, but one that I, again, just grabbed from my shelf, if I can get it on, is, there you go, it is called Western Legends. So Western Legends, you are basically taking on someone from the Old West, and the game is quite sandbox. You can go here and develop this. You can go here and grab some cards that maybe you could turn in to get points. In Western Legends, you can become a marshal. You can become a good guy by going out and catching criminals, stopping like bank robbers. You can stop people that are stealing cattle, because you can steal cattle in this game. Or you can become a bad guy by doing all of those things. You can steal cattle and sell it to a rival distributor of cattle. You can rob banks. You can rob other people. You can go to the casino and gamble and get a whole bunch of money. Western Legend is a board game sandbox game. And so that's my number 4 sandbox game. Number 5 is FLGS. FLGS stands for Friendly Local Game Store. Most game stores that I've been to, and I've been to quite a lot, as I have a whole YouTube channel about gaming, most of them don't come up to snuff. I've been to one out of probably over a dozen where I was extremely impressed by the price, the smiles on the people, the education of the salespeople. I was really impressed. And so everything else, like all the other stores I've gone to, especially here in town, I just don't think that they're very good game stores. Now, we do have a store where I live called Cards, Games, and More, or Comic Realms, which I do highly recommend because they do actually open their games, they play their games, they do live streaming on Tuesdays and show off what came in to the store as far as comic books and games, and they kind of take questions because it is a live stream, and so you can hop on the live stream and ask them questions. That is really great. I highly recommend, if you are in the Bismarck area, to give your patronage to Card Games and More. So bringing it back to the top, FLGS is basically Friendly Local Game Store. Number 6 on this list is DOAM, or DOAM, and it stands for Dudes on a Map. Dudes on a Map games are very eclectic. There's a lot of different kind of games out there. Essentially any game that has a bunch of miniatures. These are essentially, for the most part, and feel free to correct me in the comments if somebody knows of a game that's not a military game. These are typically military games. Dome games, or Dudes on a Map, are usually games where you have a whole, like a giant map and a bunch of ships and military crew or things like that. Just a bunch of dudes on a map, and you're usually there's some conflict where you're fighting each other and things like that. So some examples of Dome games. Obviously Risk is the one that I'm going to point out that everyone should know or maybe have heard of. Risk is a Dome game, just a bunch of dudes on a map. There's also games such as Memoir 44, which is a World War II two-player game. Also, speaking of World War II games, there's Axis and Allies, which is also a military game where you have a bunch of figurines and dudes on maps fighting, and again, it's conflict. Number 7 on the list is action programming. Now, action programming, as far as this YouTuber knows, was sort of created, or at least made popular, by a guy named Richard Garfield. Now, people may or may not know of Richard Garfield for creating a little somewhat popular game called Magic the Gathering. He also created a card game called Netrunner, which I personally really enjoy. He also did King of Tokyo, King of New York, and so Richard Garfield is a very highly regarded designer. But one of his first games, actually, I think before Magic the Gathering or about the same time, was called Robo Rally. Now, action programming basically has 2 phases. Everyone at the table is going to be programming their character or their robot or their military or something like that. And you're not going to know what everyone else is going to do. So I'm going to secretly say I'm going to move this way, then I'm going to move this way, and then I'm going to use my ability to do this. And so you program what your person or thing or whatever it may be is going to do. And then once everyone's done, it's almost, for you coders out there, it's almost like hitting the execute button and seeing if your program runs. So your program will run, and everyone else's will run as well, so you can have people like collide into each other You can basically try to, program your military robot to shoot at something, and guess what? By the time it got there, it's not there anymore. So you're shooting at air. And so everyone will take a phase to program, and then everyone will take a phase to kind of sit back and watch their program unfold. So the example I have for action programming is actually one of my favorite games. I do not care for Robo Rally, although I have talked about it because it does meet the criteria, but this is my bread and butter. It's called Colt Express. It won the Spiel des Jahres in 2015, and Colt Express, you are robbing a train. It's a competitive game, so you and all the other players are on a train trying to rob it, and it works. It's got a three-dimensional train, as you can see there. And it works exactly how I just said. Everyone's going to take time to kind of individually program what their criminal is going to do. And then at some point, when everyone's done, it's almost as if a director says, action. And then everything happens, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of kind of second guessing, especially where you're at in the turn order. Like if I'm going to go first. A lot of the characters, the criminals that are robbing, have special abilities that allow you to kind of break the game. Colt Express is one of my favorite games, and it also satisfies the criteria for action programming. Number 8 on this list is an incredibly... Anyone that has gone through number 8 on this list will understand the extreme outburst of rage / passion / anger that I am about to show and exhibit on camera. Number 8 today on this list is called Kingmaking. Now, Kingmaking is basically happens at the end of a long game that one player knows they're just not going to win. They look at the board, they look at how many rounds there's left, they look at their score, they realize with the amount of time of game left and where I am currently sitting, I am not going to win. I am going to take dead last. If I'm not going to win, I'm going to do things to help someone else that I know win. I'll be like, oh, well, you're close. Brad and Angelina are pretty close to winning. Their scores are close. And so I'm going to just do everything I can to help Brad and not Angelina. So that way I'm just king-making Brad. And so Brad ends up winning the game, and Angelina gets incredibly PO'd because she's just like, you tanked the game, Andrew. You tanked the game. You knew you were going to lose. You knew you had no chance of winning. So you did everything in your power to not attack Brad or to not draft cards that Brad needed to draft. Like what they call hate drafting. I don't really prefer that term, but hate drafting, basically taking a card that you don't need but you know someone else needs, and so you're blocking them from having a card that they really need. Kingmaking is incredibly frustrating. I have a brother who's been on this show before, and you may be seeing him in the near future, who recently played a game of Twilight Imperium 4. Now, for those of you who don't know, TI4 is an all-day experience. All day. He played, I think, from what he told me, he clocked in their game at 13 hours. 13 hours! And at the end of the game, there was a boyfriend-girlfriend couple that were playing. The girlfriend realized, just like I've talked about before, that she was not going to win, so she did everything she could to let her boyfriend win, or to help her boyfriend to win, which worked against my brother. My brother's like, hey, play to win. Even if you don't think you're going to win, you should always have the mindset of just trying your best. Play for yourself. Don't play. There were times where there were cards that my brother was like, that card, so-and-so cannot have that card. You need to take that card. And she would let it go. And he'd be like, oh, now he ended up with that card. He's totally going to wipe us all out. If you've played a 13-hour game and someone does the Kingmaking, if they just realize, screw it, I'm just gonna help my boyfriend win, it's ineffable how frustrating it can be, especially when you've spent literally half of a day, more than half of a day, playing one singular game, Twilight Imperium 4. Number 9 on this list is simultaneous selection. In simultaneous selection, you have a bunch of players that all have certain actions they can take. I don't know how many there may be. It depends on the game that you're playing. It might be selecting a card. It might be selecting from kind of a menu, like I want to do action 1, 2, 3, or 4. I don't know. It just depends on the game. But it's basically you choose something, Brad chooses something, Angelina chooses something, and then we all simultaneously reveal what we've chosen, and what I've chosen may, trump somebody else's, or I get to go first based on what I've played, but I don't get as powerful of an ability. It just really depends on the game. So there's 2 games I'm going to talk about. One of them's a cop-out, and I want someone to call me. On this. It's a cop-out. But it is simultaneous selection. Yeah, rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors is a simultaneous selection game. It is. You reveal at the same time. If you don't reveal at the same time, people are like, yeah, you're cheating. But it is a cop-out. It's not really a game. It's usually how you and your sibling determine who gets the front seat when you're kids. So that's kind of a cop-out. But if you want an actual game, I would say Sushi Go is a card game where you will be taking a hand of cards, selecting one card, putting it face down. Everyone else will do the same. And then we will, like I said before, we will all reveal at the same time what card we selected. So Sushi Go is more of a gamer's. Don't play don't play rock, paper, scissors. Play Sushi Go. And last on the list, number 10 is bag building. Now, I know I said I would take terminologies that don't sound like they're common sense. This one sounds very common sense, bag building, but I wanted to give a little more context to what bag building means. Obviously, you're going to have a bag of some sort, and you're going to be drafting or taking things on your turn to put into your bag, so that when you have a turn, you'll be drawing from the bag and using what you draw. The more powerful things that you put in your bag, whether if it be like tokens or little figurines or meeples or dice, the more powerful you're going to get. So you're going to start off with very little, maybe some basic things in your bag, and you're going to be adding to your bag. So think of deck building, if you're into deck building games at all, such as Marvel, Legendary, or Dominion. It's kind of like deck building, but with a bag instead of a deck of cards. You're kind of building your bag so that you build some kind of an engine. One game that does this really well is called Orleans. It's got a bunch of expansions to it, but it is a bag building game. Unfortunately, I don't have Orleans to show off to you. However, I do have one that I can show off to you. Hold on, give me a second. This is my container for a game called Dice Masters. This is Dice Masters. I'm going to see, you can see all the cool dice in here, and there are also some bags. I'm not going to open this up. This is actually annoying and really heavy. In Dice Masters, you are doing the exact same thing. It works a little bit like Magic the Gathering, but with dice. You're going to have some cards, you're going to have the appropriate dice that go with them, and you're going to be essentially starting with these white, plain old dice that everyone starts with, and as you proceed, you will be drafting, dice such as superheroes like Spider-Man and Thor and Black Widow, and I have the DC, so you have Batman and Superman. They also have Ninja Turtles. They have Dungeons and Dragons. You can mix them all together if you want. And so you're going to be taking dice and kind of drafting, like, oh, I'm going to draft like Leonardo from like the Ninja Turtles because that's who I'm playing with. You know, you can play with up to like 8 characters, and I'm going to put one of his dice in my bag, so when I shake it up and then it's my turn, hey, look, I could draw Leonardo one they're more powerful than your starting. So again, as I said previously, bag building games are essentially like a deck builder, but with a bag and dice, or tokens, or figurines, or something. But it involves a bag. And so Orleans and Dice Masters are really good recommendations. Those are 10 terminologies that you will hear gamers say. You might hear at your local FLGS. You might overhear people using some of these terminologies. You may go to someone's game night where you're playing some really in-depth strategy games, or you may hang out with a group of gamers and they will be using terminologies such as the ones just delineated in this video. So that's where I am going to leave us. We have gone through all 10. Thank you for joining me today. It was great being able to talk with you. It was great being able to share my hobby with all of you today. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and as always, I will see all of you at the next video.